As promised, 3:05 it is on the trail ride, baby. And I believe we have Mr. Greg Neri on the WPFW Airways. Yes, indeed. Greg, you there?
I'm here.
There you are. Let me pull that meter down, boy. I'm about to bust my own eardrums. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a wonderful day to talk about the Ghetto Cowboy.
All right.
How about it? Now, let's get started. Now, how long have you been a writer? How long have you been writing?
Oh, for about maybe 10 years now.
Is that right?
Yeah. But, you know, I was a late bloomer, so it took me a while to get to that point.
Okay. I'm so intrigued to one with the title Ghetto Cowboy. What is the impetus for that? Where did that come from?
Well, about 6 years ago, a friend of mine sent me an article from Life magazine, and he basically said, you know, here's your next book. And I cracked it open, and there was an article about this neighborhood, and basically the worst neighborhood in North Philadelphia. And the thing that made it different was that there was this whole unique subculture of black urban horsemen, you know, and I'd never seen such a thing. And I was kind of glued to this one picture, which showed this young kid who was maybe like 10 years old, and he was, you know, dressed in his hoodie and his boots, and he was standing up on the back of a horse, you know, basically right in the middle of the inner city. And just the look on his face was pretty priceless. I mean, he was really, like, proud, like a proud horseman. And it was such an interesting, you know, that title, basically, Ghetto Cowboy, immediately kind of popped into my head. You know, it's just one of those things that most people, even people who live in Philly, they don't even know about this, you know. And when you see it, it literally just stops you in your tracks. And that's basically the reaction they get, too, when they go riding out in the streets. You know, kids just kind of drop what they're doing, and they're like these cowboys basically, you know, moseying through the neighborhood. And it's like, Billy got cowboys, you know. And so, you know, I write books for boys and reluctant readers, and basically the way that I capture them is by writing about really unusual, you know, stories that have the same where they'll have the same reaction. You know, it'll literally like stop them in their tracks, and they go, "What is that?" You know, and they want to find out more. So that whole world was really interesting, you know, to me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and so I just had to start writing, you know.
Right. Well, I have to say that when I first received the book, or when your agent sent the book to me, I actually have a few good friends who are actually from Pennsylvania. One lives in Harrisburg, but he's originally from Philly. And actually, I've actually been on trail ride in Philadelphia. Yeah. What's the park? I forget the park we rode in.
Fairmont Park.
Yeah. We actually had a trail ride. This was probably 10 years ago, I guess it was. A few of us from here in Washington, D.C. trailered up to Philadelphia and had a trail ride in Philly. So I am very much aware of that community of horsemen that are in inner city Philadelphia. A friend of ours who was a mortician, as a matter of fact, he lived right there in Philadelphia and had his horse in his backyard. I tell you what,
right.
You know what I mean? They had stables in the backyard. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? The only other place
really
that I know that's like
thing.
that is Texas, because in Texas they don't have any zoning, so you can have horses in your
Right.
backyard in Houston, Texas. But I had never seen anything like that up here, so that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
indeed.
to me, the interesting part is the history, because, you know, you find out that this goes back decades,
Yes.
back to the early part of last century, when a lot of the best jockeys and trainers were black. And when a horse, you know, has his career and he's ready to retire, they either send him out to breed or they send him to the slaughterhouse.
That's right.
And a lot of these guys, you know, grew to love these horses, and so they started taking them back to the neighborhood and keeping them in the backyard. Or there was a lot of vacant public land in that area, so they started making, you know, makeshift stables and corrals and things like that. And, you know, it became like this kind of modern-day Western, you know, the idea of the Western where you have the land barons, you know, and trying to take all the land, and you have a lone cowboy rising up to stop them. You know, the city of Philadelphia ignored this public land in that neighborhood for decades because they wanted nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, come several years ago, developers started to see, all this open land that was for the taking. The city started siding with the developers. The only problem is these guys have been there so long they had squatters' rights, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been this ongoing battle between the city and the developers and these horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole another interesting aspect of this world that's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. For those of you who may be just tuning in, we're interviewing novelist Greg Neri, calling in from Tampa, Florida, and we're talking about his novel, his children's novel, Ghetto Cowboy. You were mentioning a moment ago that you write for boys of different ages and such. What is your prescribed age for this particular book?
This book would be appropriate for kids basically 10 and older, up into high school, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although, I occasionally I always get younger readers, too,
Is that right?
Depending on where they're from. A big part of my audience are like urban teens, and they're like ready to deal with stuff. They deal with stuff at a younger age maybe than a lot of suburban teens, so they tend to get into my books a little bit earlier than the average teen maybe.
Now, the story itself, Ghetto Cowboy, without giving too much away, I would like for people to actually to get the book. You were wonderful enough to send us some copies, and we used in our fall pledge drive. And
all right, great.
Several people did pledge for it. As a matter of fact, on last evening, I was at a fish fry for a trail ride here in suburban Washington, and they were having a toy drive as a part of their fish fry for their trail ride today. And actually, I took one of the books down there and donated the book. Instead of giving a toy, I thought it would be great if a child would have get a novel, you understand, for Christmas, you understand, and that might that might start something for him, trigger something in his mind, just like it did the young fella in your book here. Let me ask you this: is the story based on a real story?
No, it's basically, everything that happens in the story is inspired by something that actually happened in real life, But what I did was kind of take all these elements, which may not have been directly related to, a small group of people, and turned it into one story, basically using the main character to bring it all together. And the story is basically this young kid named Cole down by them on his stable. And these guys who have been through these battles and are perhaps worn down by them and almost bitter over it, Cole turns out to be the one who rises up and challenges the other guys.
That's right.
To rise up and take on the good fight.
That's right, with the authorities, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's interesting too that Cole actually comes his mom takes him from Detroit to inner city Philly.
Right.
Boy, that's pretty rough. That's a
Yeah.
He was ready for him though. When he hit the block, he was ready. Boy, he knew how to get his game face on quick, fast, and in a hurry. Boy, once he hit the streets, it's wonderful. I really enjoyed how you developed the story, and as you say, I think as an adult, I enjoyed just the way that you developed the story for Cole and the relationship with his father.
Right.
And the rekindling of his relationship with his mother. I just think that you did a wonderful job, and I think that young people particularly, and as you say, inner city, I think young people particularly could really benefit, all children, but particularly them. It's funny because many of I have horses here in D.C., out in Maryland, and several of my friends and we on occasion ride through the city. I have one friend in particular, boy, who any opportunity he gets to ride on the streets of Washington, D.C., he'd rather do that than ride out in the country. Right. And it's wonderful to see the faces of the young people, not only the young people, but the adults as well, who is something about a horse. I don't think there's any other animal in the world that makes the impact on human beings that horses do. And when people see people riding horses, it's just such an enormous response.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you capture that in your book here. I think it's wonderful.
And basically, you know, that's how kids get drawn into these stables. You know, they see these guys riding around. The immediate reaction, especially if they're really young, is they want to get up on the horse too.
Right.
And the guys let them ride a little, or take them, you know, walk them around a little bit. And then they basically say, well, you know, this is where we are, and you should come on down and check us out if you want to know more. And, you know, the kids just start showing up. Mm-hmm. And they basically put them to work. It's like, you know, they're really drawn by, like, the horse racing, because these guys do these horse races down in Fairmount Park on Saturdays.
We call it bush racing.
Yeah. And, you know, you hear these kids talking, they're like trash talking like they're drag racers, you know. It's like, and they're talking about their souped-up cars, but they're talking about the horses. You know, so immediately the young boys particularly, first, you know, they get there, they want to race.
Right.
You know, but the guys kind of put the kibosh on that. It's like, look, you want to race, you got to earn your stripes. You know, first you got to learn about horses. You got to learn how to take care of a horse. You got to learn how to muck the stables, how to feed them, how to wash them, how to brush them, you know, how to saddle them, and all that stuff. You know, then slowly they work their way up. They learn how to ride, and then they can start riding a little bit faster at a time. But that whole process, they basically learn how to take ownership of a horse and pride in making the best horse possible.
Right.
You know, to basically show up these other guys, you know, but they learn how to respect the horse and love the horse and what it is to take care of another life instead of getting drawn into gangs and maybe taking a life.
That's right.
You know, so it's a beautiful thing, kind of what they're doing. And these guys, you know, they don't ask for any money. They don't ask for any credit or anything. It's just what they do. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like real cowboys, that stoic kind of cowboy. Mm-hmm. They just do it. They don't talk about it. They don't brag about it. They don't, you know,
they just do it. They
be
about
it. They just do it.
They just do it. Yeah. Don't talk about it. Be about it. That's what it is. That's what it is right there. But you actually, it's a rite of passage that you have to go through in order to learn how to take care of horses, to develop yourself as a horseman before you can just jump on a horse and take off hell bent across the field. Yes, indeed. Now, where, if people want to get the book, if they want to order the book, do you have a website that people can access?
Yeah, I mean, first thing, they can go to my website, which is www.gregneri.com. They could check out the page about Ghetto Cowboy, and there's wonderful links to videos and audio and articles about the real-life neighborhoods and these guys. Mm-hmm. But they can also read about the book and listen to audio clips from the audiobook and all this stuff, and then they can order directly from that page, or you can order it, you know, on Amazon or IndieBound, or find it in hopefully your local bookstore.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you today here on the trail ride, and perhaps we'll do it again. It's been a long time coming, but we finally made it happen, and that's excellent. That's excellent that we saw this thing through and got all the way to the finish line on this.
Yeah,
yes, you're right.
I appreciate your interest.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's a wonderful piece, and we thank you for taking the time to write it and to promote it and to send it to us so that we could share it with the listeners here in the Washington metropolitan area.
All right, man.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, man. And like I said, we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take good care. Don't drown down there in Florida.
All right.
All right. See you later.